How are you, Vincent? Oh, stop. Don't worry about her. Shay,
Don't worry about her.
Okay. She's okay. She can be a little strange because, you know.
Cute.
All right, it's okay.
Hi, bald guy.
Nice to meet you, bald guy.
Nice to meet you.
All right, she says, hi, you're all right because you're bald.
I am sure.
So, Vincent, I checked out your website. You and I have never met. This is the first time we've met each other.
That's it.
And the first question I have is, the reason why you wrote me is you heard that I drive around and I do these interviews with people in my car.
That's what Linda told me. She said, I know another bald guy who drives around interviewing people. The only thing is, I put people and let them drive the car.
I like that idea. Now, does Nissan pay you to do that? Do you have a sponsor?
No, I have a sponsor, but Nissan, I just bought the car.
Oh!
I just bought the car, and there's a lease company which sells, which basically leases out companies to cars to companies, and they pay the car. And I have some sponsors like Vodafone who pays for the SIM card and so that I can basically broadcast 24/7, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So I have some.
SIM card? You mean mobile?
Yeah. So I basically, if you look at my car, and if I'm in Holland, at the moment, if you go to Leafplan, you don't see it. But normally, you go to my website, you see live video from the car.
But you have
24 hours, 7 days a week. No, 20. Even if it's just parked. I have in the back. I have a little box, which has six different SIM cards, and it broadcasts through 6 different channels. So I have nice quality video, and I basically show people where the car is, even if it's parked 20 hours. You know, I only use it 1 hour or 2 hours a day. And the only thing is, if I'm in the car and I'm interviewing people, I press a button, start interview.
Yeah.
And at the end I say stop interview, and 10 minutes later it's on the YouTube.
Wow, that is so cool.
I instantly publish everything.
So what happens when you're not in an interview and you're just driving the car to get groceries? Do you feel like you're on camera?
I am on camera.
And do you actually talk to people and go?
No, well, sometimes sometimes I start a column and I say, you know what happened to me, and I basically in this thing, and I talk to people. The moment I say start column, doing a column, then there's a tweet. I have 10,000 followers. If I say start interview, you know, within a minute or two, I have 100 people watching, and then basically I talk to people and they start replying back, and they basically, you know, so and then. But then I say stop my column, and I talk about something, you know, like Yahoo this or the politics here or that. Mr. Lessig, we all know you from Amsterdam because of copyright law and all the work you've done in that respect. Now you're all in corruption of Congress. How did you make that change?
Well, at a certain point I realized we weren't going to make any progress in the field of copyright, and not just an esoteric field like copyright, but more fundamental issues like global warming or healthcare or financial reform, until we address this more fundamental issue first. So this is what tenure is for. You can shift fields and not worry about losing your job. So I shifted fields and I'm working on this more fundamental problem.
Okay. So you held a speech here this evening, and now I walk out even more depressed about American politics than I already was.
Yeah, depression's the first stage to accepting the problem we face, and it might be the first stage to inspiring some to at least try to address it. But it's the reality. This could not be worse right now. We have lost the capacity to govern, and somehow we have to build a citizens' movement to try to take it back.
But I do about 10, 20 interviews a week, sometimes 30. Sometimes if I go to some kind of an event and I have interesting speakers. But there's 2 things why I started to do that. I wanted to basically drive a different kind of car, you know, which basically was more reflecting how we should. I mean, we have 800 million cars, right, and the oil production is going down. I have been to China quite a bit, and they're now building a huge amount of much more cars than anywhere in the world. So we're going to 2.4 billion cars. We're going to get 3 times more cars than we have today, with less oil. So the only thing which will happen is that we will get into a gigantic war on who gets the oil. And on the other hand, we have electricity, right, endless amount of electricity. So I basically took my house, I put solar cells on my roof. That produces enough for 25,000, about 20,000, 18,000 miles per year. And the electricity. Yeah. So I paid one time $10,000 on my roof, and I can now for the next 50 years I can drive 18,000 miles, and it drives so silently.
How long will it take?
No, just over a whole year. Over a whole year.
18, you can drive 18,000
miles per year.
And you pay $10,000
one time.
price.
Yeah, the solar
terrific.
cells are becoming really cheap. And you know, in the winter you need electricity from the grid. In the summer, you basically now my roof is doing top production and it's producing, but it's putting everything back in the grid. And
so are you? Oh, so you go right back to the grid. You don't store it.
No, I cannot store. Storing is really difficult. Storing, I mean, within 10 years, in 10 years, solar energy will be the cheapest electricity ever. The only thing is, we will only have it during 11 o'clock and 4 o'clock. So how do we then basically spread it over the spread it out over the day? That's going to be the biggest question. But my neighbor country, Germany, on a good sunny day, 25% of the electricity of Germany is produced by solar electricity. They are way ahead of Holland. They're way ahead of everybody else in the world.
Right, they are.
Yeah. So, but they have the problem.
They're not buying solar panels from China, though, are they?
Oh yes, they are.
They are.
Oh, of course. I mean, because China is the best production engine. But what the Germans produce is those little boxes next to it, which take 3 volts and 5 volts and put it to 110 volts or 220 volts, and that's also an expensive little piece. And they do 10 or 20 billion dollars of stuff on that. So the thing around it. And so I think solar energy is going to be important, storage is going to be important, we need all the alternative energy we can get, we need smart systems to do it, and then we can drive electric car. And driving an electric car, well, you have a fantastic car out of a great past.
Yes.
And if you start it, it sounds wonderful.
Right.
It's not so good for interviews because the quality of the sound goes back.
Right.
But with electricity.
Exactly. Well, you know what? My hope one day is that I'll convert this car to electric and keep the body. Yeah. I mean, I know that
you can easily do that. I mean, there's room enough for this thing. The only thing that needs to happen is that the batteries will have to. The batteries will become 5 times cheaper, 10 times more effective per kilo, and then also cars will be a fantastic storing mechanism.
We just had a major controversy here about we already have one wind turbine, but we had a major controversy about putting a bigger one up.
Oh yeah, and everybody complains about.
And they complained, and it didn't happen.
And also I hear that the committee here, the committee who looks after the beauty of the island, doesn't agree with solar panels. That they think that's too ugly.
I think they're more willing to accept that because they can't see them. They're flat. They don't want to see.
Well, I mean, you see them on the roof. I mean, it's really very clear if you put them on the roof.
I think they want to put a farm in and generate.
Of course, yeah, that's in the back. But I mean, it's more you want.
True.
We want to have. We want to have these solar panels on the houses.
You do.
And then all the houses can be energy sufficient. They can basically produce their own energy, and they can produce energy for the cars, and they can do. But you can also make these huge solar, manufacturing plants. But decentralization, just like the internet, is really interesting. People can now, with very small amount of investment, create their own energy place.
All right, look, I want to put yourself in perspective. We haven't done that yet. What do you consider yourself to be?
I am a trend watcher, and I basically watch at technology trends and see how it influences society.
Now, how long have you been doing this?
Well, well, you can also see a little bit about my background. I studied when I was a child. I basically, at 10 years old, I bought all television sets, repaired them, and put an ad on the paper and sold them to people. So I made a lot, and I sold them for $100. Bought them for $5. So I was an entrepreneur. I love technology, and I can talk like hell. So I studied physics. Then I switched to political science because I love how people make decisions. I then studied economics because I needed a job, and then ended up in business school. And 6 weeks before I ended business school, I started my first company with my with 2 colleagues, which basically installed PCs in companies, did networking, and basically helped people to use ICT in 1984 when the PC came just out. Then I moved to America and started a software company. They called me the Flying Dutchman because I had an unlimited ticket, where I could fly 60 days in the United States, unlimited, every plane with Delta Airlines. So I would fly to Boeing, to Silicon Valley. I would fly all over the country, everywhere, and I would basically sell my software, and that was document management software, and I sold hundreds of thousands of copies of that. So I lived in Atlanta for 5 years. And then basically I discovered the internet in 1994. Went back to Holland and discovered the internet, that it was coming up, was really enthusiastic, and I started an executive demonstration center. And I had a huge center where we would receive about 50,000 executives a year and teach them what internet was and how they should use it. And so I've been a trend watcher forever, since I remember, talking about how important technology is, how it will change people's life, how it will change the way we educate, produce things, do politics, entertain ourselves. And so I'm really enthusiastic. And now, since the last couple of years, I go like, hey, I have kids. Now I have kids of 4 and 6.
You still have these businesses, though?
Yeah, well, actually, the company I was telling you about, that software company, which I started in 1988, and I left at 1994. So I left a long time. I just sold it last week.
Congratulations.
So it was a $20 million. It had turned into a $30 million software company. And it did very well, and I just sold it last week. So there was I had to wait a little bit for it, but it's sold now.
So now you'll continue how?
And then a couple of years, so I basically got kids, and I go like, I love playing with technology, but it's all having fun and changing the way the economy goes. But I go like, shit, my kids 4 and 6, who are now 4 and 6, they cannot live like we live. We need to do something. So now I'm really interested in saying, how can this world be more sustainable? So I bought an electric car. I basically said I need to show this to as many people as can. How can I do that? Well, I interview people in the car just like you do.
Yeah.
And I've now driven in the first year. I've driven 25,000 miles in my electric car, in my Nissan Leaf.
Okay, and
which is one of the highest in the world. I mean, I'm quite up there.
You like the car?
Oh, it's fantastic. It's
now,
so
let me
smooth.
ask you this. But I mean, there's a lot I want to ask you. But
okay.
When you mention an electric car, they cost more money, but yet will that engine last longer than a combustible?
Yeah. Oh yeah,
it will. That's what I thought.
Yeah, the engine and the car will last forever. It's more, do the batteries last? The batteries, that is the most, because the electric engine, it's this size. It doesn't have any moving parts except only the thing in the middle, the axle. But it's very sustainable, and electricity is about. I mean, the cost of my car in Holland is about 15 cents per kilometer for combustion, for a normal car, and 2 cents for electricity. It's 3 to 5 times as cheap per mile to drive as on petrol. Now, also in America, that's actually the case, because electricity is here 3 times cheaper than in Holland, and also gasoline is 3 times cheaper than gas is cheaper, 3 times cheaper.
But how long will that last for? How long can we sustain that?
Well, I think that oil. I mean, there's so little oil and so much competition.
Well, they say they can get oil though from anything now. You know, the hope is that, you know, we'll find new deposits. Which
well, and I have friends working in Shell. Yeah. And they say we'll find more deposits, but it will get more and more and more expensive to get it out. It will be unbelievable expensive. And if we go to, if the energy keeps on growing, if we're 3 or 4% like it is, it will double again, you know, in like 10, 15 years. And there will be no way in hell that we can do that with oil.